Alright, so PvPoke just released his the top 5 teams data on his website. As you see here, as expected, Alolan Marowak and, of course, the legendary Hypno is just wrecking everyone's soul. In fact, literally Hypno's on the top 3 teams. Or Alolan, or AWAC. So either one, as I predicted, is running over pretty much most of the meta. Or most created teams. Because a 537 rating is pretty dang strong. As you see, once you take out Hypno, the team drops a whole 13 points on average. That's a lot. So, we're going to analyze the top 5 teams here. As you see, Alolan Marowak with Shadow Ball seems to be taking the cake. So, Alolan Marowak seems to be immune. I think it's because of the mirror match. So, Shadow Ball does take a little more energy. There's nothing wrong with both of them. As PvPoke says right here, there's a lot of viable move choices to be made, and Shadow Ball seems to outperform Shadow Ball, but both are viable. So the extra stopping power is useful. It's up to you. For my strategy, I'm going to want to break shield, so I'm going to build to a Shadow Ball anyways, and then Shadow Bone everything. But yes, Shadow Ball seems to be taking over Shadow Bone at this point. Which is good news, because if you have a better Shadow Ball than a Shadow Bone, which you should have, then it's a lot better. Anyways, let's get started with these top 3 teams. Alright, so here's a little analysis on why the Alolan Marowak and the Hypno core is just so good. Alolan Marowak and Hypno are both fantastic chargers, and Alolan Marowak is the #1 lead in the Kanto Cup. As you see, and most of you know, Alolan Marowak maxes out at near 1500, sports one of the best stat spreads in the game for Great League, and it's incredibly versatile. Its combination of Bone Club, Shadow Bone, and Shadow Ball will wreck a lot of Pokemon in this meta. As you see here, it does sport a great amount of weaknesses. However, because of the lack of, Swampert, or, other super oppressive mons that really have Ground Rock, Galarian Stunfisk, to name some of them, or Umbreon, Marowak is really, really good for the Kanto Cup. And it also checks Hypno, and Hypno itself is just a monster, so... As you see here, it does have a ton of resistances as well. Mainly resisting those Charmers as well as Grass types. Which is really good because you want to take out those Charmers as well as those Razor Leaf users. That's why Alolan Marowak is so good. Combine its great stat spread, because it's really balanced, and it's somewhat bulky as well. Not super thick like a Lapras, but it can take some damage. And its combination and options of Fire Spin, Hex, or Shadow Ball, as you see, it has a horde of moves you can use. Very versatile, very powerful, and there's no real wrong answer when it comes to using either Hex or Fire Spin. It's really up to you. And also easy to obtain, and you likely already have one. And like I said, the Shadow Ball variant, according to the data, seems to be it seems to work more. Both are viable, but it's really just up to you. Alright, and we also have Hypno. So the Hypno AWAC core is really good because Hypno is just a really good safe switch. The thing about Hypno is that it's incredibly versatile, and as you see here, max down your 1500, bulky, has a lot of options for its movesets, and it has very few checks in the Kanto Cup. With Alolan Muck and Alolan Marowak running around, it actually has checks, because here's the thing. A Hypno versus something like a Gengar or a Haunter, guess what wins? Whoever has Psychic. And if you've ever seen a Haunter or a Gengar get deleted by a Confusion, it really sucks. And because of that, if Alolans weren't allowed in this cup, that would mean Hypno would just run rampant. So it's good that we have AWAC, and it's good that we have Amok. Now, the reason why Hypno's so strong, nothing is said. There's really nothing to, not a lot bad to say about Hypno. Hypno is incredibly versatile in this cup. It's one of the most powerful mons across all of Go Battle League. In Great League, it's been viable pretty much since Season 1, and when its Shadow version came out, it pretty much it ran rampant, and it kind of deleted everything. So Hypno's really cool. It has a cool shiny as well, but mainly what makes it really good is also its moveset. It has such a viable move pool. It sports all 3 elemental punches. It also has Focus Blast, Fire Punch, and it has Confusion and Shadow Ball, Psychic. It even has Psyshock as a legacy move. So it's really good. Versatile, powerful, and really good for this cup. Because of it, it's an excellent save switch, and it's very good, incredible generalist against a lot of the meta. Even against Amok, even though Amok does resist confusion, etc., you can grab a shield or 2 off of Amok before Hypno goes down. Or just deal heavy damage to Amok before it goes down in general. Alright, so for the team coming in at number 5, we have Alolan Marowak lead, Shadow Champ in the middle, and we have Alolan Marowak. I'm assuming Alolan Marowak is the safe switch for this team. Alolan Muk is a great lead because there's not a lot of things that actually check Alolan Muk, so you can use Amok and AWAC to break shields, and then I'm assuming you leave Shadow Champ in the closer with shields to take down whatever's in the back, and you just run it over. Or if you win the lead, and you win switch, you find that Lapras, you just smack it down and punch it to death, and then that's GG's. Anyways, this team has excellent coverage. Does very well against the overall meta, and now bulk is going to be low just because you have Shadow Champ in this team, so it's not going to have a lot of bulk in the overall meta. And the safety and it's very safe, very consistent. Not the safest in the world, but a B is a really good rating still. Now, as you see here, Hypno does not do well in the one shield against Amok and AWAC. You got 2 covers for Machamp, for your Shadow Champ, so that your Shadow Champ can go to town. As you see, very powerful. Shadow Champ's also able to beat Alolan Marowak in the one shield, as long as you can dump a bunch of rocks on it. So it's still really good. So Shadow Champ, hard to run fighters in this meta, but if you play them well, they can do very well. As you see here, number 5 team. Very well against the overall meta. Your potential threats are Blastoise. I don't foresee a lot of Blastoise running around. You might, but even then, Blastoise isn't like as oppressive as Alolan Muk, Hypno in general, or like Alolan Marowak. As you see here, you do well against Gyarados. You do well against Dragon. You do well against. Well, you don't actually do well against Gyarados, but you do okay. What's really good is, unless it's a Beedrill lead, you have very neutral like wins and few losses with this team. It's very good. As you see here, Blastoise doesn't, like I said, it's not that oppressive. So the top 5 in this list, other than I'd say Beedrill and Dragonite, they're not really that super oppressive, or I wouldn't even worry about it. So the top, Dragonair, Beedrill, and Dragonite can be very annoying, but other than that, everything else is fine. So pretty good team. Not a lot of super threats. The threat score is 583, so very good team. Very good team. If you play, the difficulty about this team, I'd say, is probably Machamp, because you don't really see a lot of, you don't see a lot of rocket stops nowadays, and if you have frustration on yours, you can't TM it off. So that's what I can see being a problem for this team, is just getting Machamp, and at the same time, you have to keep Machamp away from Hypno at all costs. Alright, so for our number 4 team, we have Alolan Marowak lead, Lapras, and Wigglytuff. I like this team a lot because it's very thick. You threaten Machamp, and Wigglytuff with shields is dangerous. Lapras seems to be the safest in this team. I like Lapras as a safe, especially with with Machamp not being like super common because Hypnos. Lapras is actually a great generalist, so Lapras can do very well. Lapras also beats Dugong, and with Skull Bash, you can create a lot of plays, especially if its defense is buffed. Like it a lot. I like Alolan Marowak lead is solid, very solid. Lapras is thick, and Wigglytuff with shields is dangerous. Now, if we scroll down, this team is really good across the board. Sports very good bulk, because all 3 of these Pokemon have a decent amount of bulk. It covers the meta very well, very, very safe, and very consistent as well. So this team has a lot of pivots. It's really good, and like I said, Wigglytuff with 2 shields is dangerous. Now, if you look here, Hypno actually loses the 1 shield against all 3 of these Pokemon, which is really good. Having 3 checks against Hypno is great, and you do have a problem against Alolan Marowak. A small problem though, because Alolan Marowak and Lapras can take care of Marowak, or Marowak is susceptible to being charmed down if Wigglytuff has shield advantage. So, or like if it has enough chip damage, you can charm down an AWAC. So as you see here, very solid team against the the meta. Again, Lapras is a really good versus Dugong in this core just because Lapras does beat Dugong and Lapras is your safe. It does very well. Now your potential threats seem to be Alolan Graveler. I don't see... So Alolan Graveler is a very good sleeper pick. I just don't see it being used a lot because it's expensive. And for future use, I don't know if it's going to be viable. You have Blastoise, Lapras, of course other Laprases. Lapras can give you... Lapras versus Lapras is neutral. And Lapras does beat Alolan Marowak. So just be careful when it comes to... Just be careful about Lapras. Or, yeah. Lapras can't... Well, it can be... The keyword is can. Can beat Alolan Marowak. That's what's good. Alolan Marowak isn't, like, super bad against Lapras, where it's like, oh, you have a Wigglytuff versus a Scrafty. No, it's not that bad. It's good. As you see, very good neutral matchups against a lot of the meta, and no hard losses. I don't foresee... Well, you can see Venusaur, but because Alolan Marowak's going to go to town, I don't foresee a lot of Venusaurs ruining your day. So, very, very good team. Solid threat score of 568. Probably the lowest we've seen today just because it's very balanced. And like I said, good team, great core, and Wigglytuff with shields is a monster. Alright, so we have Dugong, Hypno, and we have Snorlax. So this team is... I like it a lot. This team's solid. Dugong as a lead, I like it just because Icy Wind, like I mentioned in one of my videos, Dugong's one of the best, is one of a top debuffer in the meta. It will debuff you, it will water pulse you to death, it's very viable. I like it as a lead a lot, especially even if you get an Alolan Marowak lead, it's not super bad. You have play, so you have play against an Alolan Marowak. Hypno, great safe switch. I'm assuming Hypno and Snorlax are kind of like dual safe switches. Hypno being a very good, like Hypno obviously is what runs this meta and what most people have in their team to actually kill it. You're either going to have Hypno or you're going to kill Hypno. That's really what it is. And the Dugong Hypno core is solid. I like Snorlax as a closer because Snorlax does have bulk, Body Slams chunk, and the Lick does super effective damage against Hypno. And Superpower, if Superpower hits a Lapras, it's going to hurt a lot. So I already ran this team, and it is an A+ across the board. I like this team a lot. Tons of bulk, covers the meta very good, and it's extremely safe. So it's got bulk, it's got damage, it's got plays because you can debuff, and at the same time, you got things like Superpower. So, like, you have a lot of... As you see, it's extremely good. Very good team. Not a surprise that's number 3. Now, against the meta, it's very powerful. As you see here, Dugong and Snorlax can check Hypno. You also check Lickitung. You do have a little bit of a problem against the Alolan Marowak. Like I said, you have play, but it's not like a strong play, but it's not death-defying either. It's not like AWAC versus a Dugong, and then you just die and you just get destroyed. So, yeah, just keep that in mind that if you see a Alolan Graveler, just be careful. As you see here, very solid. Very powerful, very good across the board in a lot of the top meta. Like I said, you kind of have to be careful where I'm Alolan Marowak, but it's not a hard loss either. And again, with Lapras is kind of a problem for this team, just because you don't have anything that really hard checks Lapras, but it doesn't mean... It's not a horrible thing, you know what I mean? The reason why this team rates A across the board is because nothing really destroys you, so you have good coverage against a lot of the mons, and you have decent enough bulk to where you can play out of situations. So it's not like the end of the world if you get locked into something. Now your potential trends, like I mentioned, Lapras. Lapras does beat Dugong in many scenarios, especially if it gets that Skull Bastion and that buff, because Lapras walls you. Hypno and Snorlax can take on Lapras, but it really just depends on what scenario and how the battle's going. Snorlax is another one of your problems. Snorlax is thick, it does threaten Dugong because it has superpower, and at the same time, even if you do debuff it, it's very dangerous because it's very spammy. So, like I said, Lapras, Snorlax, it's not a horrible loss. It's not a hard loss. Like, for example, Alolan Golem versus Dugong, as you see here. It's not a hard loss, but you'll do well. This team does well, especially if they have the Charmer in front, as you see, because Wigglytuff, you're able to beat Wigglytuff. But, like I said, no hard losses across the board. No hard losses across the board. And you have things, as you see, once some things cover each other. Unless you see Machamp, then if you have Hypno locked into Machamp, it just dies. Or Machamp can end Dugong's life, but you have play against Machamp. So, very, very good team. Rates at 589. So, it's very, very good team. Very, very good team. The only issue I see is that Dugong, you need an Elite TM for Dugong. So, unless you have Dugong, I wouldn't worry about it. This team isn't in one of these two mons. Dugong isn't in the top 2 teams, so I wouldn't worry about it. Very good team, very good coverage, in my opinion. Very good. However, like I mentioned, Dugong, like, it's expensive. If you don't have Dugong, don't worry about making this team or using it. There's other teams you can use. Alright, enter the top 2 teams. Now, these 2 teams both feature the AWAC Hypno core. So, AWAC Hypno, very powerful, very good. If you have it, use it. So, Alolan Marowak and Hypno are a very powerful core because they cover each other so well. And there's not a lot of checks against both of them. So, they're very, very powerful. And this team features a Wigglytuff in the back. I'm assuming Hypno's your safe switch. Wigglytuff goes to town in the back with 2 shields or has shield advantage and just charms everything down. That's my assumption with this team. Very good, very balanced. The AWAC Hypno core, like I mentioned, is just so powerful in this meta. Now, if we run the rating, it has insane coverage. Great coverage against a lot of the meta. The AWAC Hypno core is very powerful, covers a lot. And as you see here, has an A. Not super bulky, just because I'm thinking there are some matchups here that aren't going to, like, cover, like, the entirety, or there's other things that can check you. However, it's very safe. You have Hypno as your safe switch, or you can switch into Wigglytuff depending on the situation. Consistent, and you won't bait a lot. Well, that's mostly because it's Wigglytuff. Wigglytuff doesn't really need an introduction. It's not going to bait a lot. And AWAC and Hypno, even if you don't hit the bait, they still do a decent amount of damage. As you see here, does very well against the meta. Hypno is destroyed by both Alolan Marowak and Wigglytuff. Well, not exactly destroyed. There are ways Hypno can win. However, they're very strong. Wigglytuff with 2 shields and AWAC do take on Hypno pretty well. As you see here, Lickitung and Snorlax, you do have a problem against the Lick squad. However, because Wigglytuff does resist Lick, because it carries a normal typing, it does beat Lickitung and Snorlax. So you do have coverage against the Lickers. Alolan Marowak Muck might give you a little bit of problem because you don't beat them super hard, but because you do have play against them. As you see here, very good against the rest of the meta. Lapras is something also that might give you a little bit of an issue in the ones, but I wouldn't worry about it too much because you have strong matchups across the board here. Now, if you look at your threats, like I mentioned, Alolan Muck. Amok is very safe against this team. Someone switches Amok into you, they have a lot of play. That's the only thing about this thing. But you're gonna see Amoks anyway, so you're gonna expect to see it. Amok's powerful, versatile, and it's featured in the number 5 team. So you can expect to see Amoks in this meta. You also have a problem against Lickitung. Not too much of a problem, in my opinion. Lickitung needs to be best buddied. And you need it Body Slam's legacy, so I can't foresee a lot of Lickitungs running around that's really going to give you a problem. There can be, but I don't see a lot of it. And even if it is, it's not a hard loss, as you see here. You have both Lickers, you have Blastoise. Blastoise is interesting. Blastoise with Water Gun does give AWAC a problem, but you have Hypno and Wigglytuff to safe switch into, and Alolan Marowak can still Shadow Bone it to death if you can get in certain range. See, very powerful, very good. Lapras is something also of a little bit of a problem. As you see, Lapras is pretty strong against you, and against Alolan Marowak, it is going to force you to play a bait game, so just be careful against the top 5 here. However, as you see, Alolan Marowak core and Hypno, very, very powerful. And Wigglytuff with shields is a monster, of course. Alright, so here we go. Here are the top 5 teams. Here's the technical summary, guys. I hope one of these 5 teams really helps you out. If you're having trouble finding a team, these teams, I definitely, from my analysis, can actually do very well. As you see, the top teams have Alolan Marowak. Alolan Marowak, I've done a video on it, does very well in this meta. I've also done a video on Lapras and Hypno. The Lapras Marowak or the Lapras Hypno core are not Lapras Hypno core. The Marowak Lapras or the Marowak Hypno core is very strong. As you see here, Alolan Marowak and Hypno as a safe switch is great. It's featured in Hypno in the safe switch is featured in the top 3 teams. Marowak is a fantastic lead, and as you see, it looks like Wigglytuff and Snorlax are they really like being in the closer. Now, the good thing about this team is Marowak and Hypno, you probably have those already. Wigglytuff, it had a Spotlight Hour, so you can get that easily. I don't know about Snorlax. Great League Snorlax is hard to come by, but because Snorlax has been out for so long, you might have one just sitting there. If you don't have a Snorlax, Wigglytuff is fine. So, you should be okay. Don't worry about it. And the top 3, Alolan Muck is still really good in this meta. As you see, you're still featured in one of the top teams. You can use Amok, but if you have already Alolan Marowak and you have Hypno, it's a really great core. I recommend you use it. Anyways, as you see here, the top performers, AWAC, as I predicted, is a monster. Number 1, and the Shadow Ball version seems to be performing much better, so you can use Shadow Ball or Shadow Bone. It's really up to you. Second is Dugong. Dugong is a monster because it's able to debuff you and it can give you a lot of play, which is why the number 3 team did so well. Is because it has Dugong and Dugong does so well. The problem, it's expensive. And of course, our friend Amok. Amok, thick, great generalist, does well, charges fast, will give you a lot of problems, especially if you get locked into a Hypno. And of course, you have right here, you have Lapras, and then you have Alolan Marowak. Which moveset you should use? I think you should use just whichever Marowak you have available to you. For example, if you already have a Shadow Ball one built, use it. If you have a Shadow Ball one, then you can use that. Like a 4% difference isn't too much. A 13 rating is, so it looks like Shadow Ball does better. So Shadow Ball does better overall, but you can use either one. In a nutshell, if you don't have a Shadow Ball one built, if you have a Shadow Ball one built, use it. Don't worry about using Shadow Bone. That way you can save dust and you don't have to worry about building the raid one because you'll likely have to get one traded to you before you have a good one. Anyways, hope you guys enjoyed this analysis. Like I mentioned, recommendations: AWAC, Hypno, Snorlax, Wigglytuff, Lapras. That's good. Audible mentions are, of course, Amok and Maywok, Machamp. And as you see, Mew's featured in one of these teams. Great save switch, very versatile. It can also give you quite a scare because Mew has such a versatile moveset. And those are my top picks. Anyways, I hope this video helps you out guys a lot. Please like and subscribe. If you guys have any questions, just put in the comments. And I will see you on the next video. And good luck on your Kanto Cup battles today and for the rest of the week.